Hello,
Hi,
people.
everyone.
Welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast.
Welcome, everyone. I am Laura, and I am the owner of ODA Virtual Assistant, and we help small businesses um, really just find what they need in staffing and delegating and strategy in their business and helping them along as they start to come out of the I'm just a startup into their growth mode and oh my gosh, what happens next? So we're here to ease that pain a bit and help you out with that. So
Yep, and I'm Angelique, and Lady, so you can see right there, Lady Powerhouse Solutions, and we take a heart-centered approach to offering project and event management for women entrepreneurs on fire and lighten up the world with their passion and drive to achieve their missions in the most authentic way possible.
absolutely. Welcome, everyone. And together that makes us Fempreneur True Confessions podcast. So, our mission here is to empower women in business and in life to live authentically and support each other instead of competing with each other. We see competition too much in this, and coming into this, we just decided we're not those people. We want to get rid of that. So, that is our mission on this. We model authenticity through our business and personal relationships to empower other women to do the same.
Yeah, and it's about normalizing the struggles and challenges and sharing the lessons learned with a common goal of lifting other women up, never tearing them down, and normalizing what it looks like when women succeed at supporting each other and building up their confidence, encouraging them to use their gifts and their passions to fulfill their life's calling. So, Fempreneur True Confessions podcast and the brand itself is about building, maintaining, and growing this sisterhood that believes in an abundance mindset, sharing our struggles, sharing our challenges, and helping each other rise to our highest potential. So excited about our guest today. Laura, can you
Yeah.
introduce our guest?
Yes, ma'am. So this is Jess. Um, and Jess is our a resident nerdy. She loves to be talked nerdy too, so she is here. Um,
I love it.
and she's a lifelong tech nerd. Jess Jorgensen has found her home as a multi-business owner and entrepreneur while traveling and exploring the U.S. as a digital nomad. After leaving the tech channel in corporate America, Jess continued her IT experience by launching Blush Technology Group in the middle of the pandemic. The quality of life that technology offers people across the globe has always been a passion for Jess as she raised her seven now adult children because it afforded her the ability to work from home and the football field, which is where a lot of us understand come from. So being home when the kids were ill, or pretty much anywhere she needed to be, she could be. As a busy mother, finding the best possible balance between work and home obligations was Jess's priority. And helping others find that peace of mind is what has kept her in the tech field for her entire career. Blush Technology Group tackles complex communication, network architecture, and cybersecurity challenges. As the children all left home for their adult adventures, Jess found herself bored and wanting to travel more with her husband Russ, and two dogs. She solved their mobile home internet issues by repurposing some enterprise tech for RVs, and that solution is the foundation of Go Roam Tech. Today, as full-time RV dwellers and digital nomads, the Jorgensens travel the country while helping others do the same. Jess and her team of experts deploy rugged technology to withstand the elements while simultaneously smoothing LTE cellular and satellite connections into one reliable and stable stream of internet services. This technology, amazing, is helping her and other entrepreneurs, professionals who rely on Zoom, MS Teams, Google Workspaces, and all of those things, and plus, to run their businesses and thrive. GoRoam.tech is a lifestyle brand created to help all traveling professionals enjoy a better quality of life with tech while traveling. When not working, Jess loves to snuggle her dogs, hike, kayak, read, and off-road in their Can-Am. Ooh, I love off-roading.
Welcome, Jess.
Thank you.
We're so excited you're here.
I have been like chomping at the bit. I'm like, okay, get through the intro. Okay, so it was a great intro, by the way.
Yes.
So you are in your camper right now. I know because I've been stalking your social media and I know what the inside of your camper looks like. But if for somebody who didn't know and hadn't looked at your social, that looks like a regular old house. It's huge.
It sure does. It is. It is quite large. So that was the deal that my husband and I made. So we did a proof of concept because we are tech nerds. That's how we do things and prove them out. So we did a 6-month proof of concept last year in a 23-foot travel trailer, like a bumper pull travel trailer, toy hauler. So I went into the living room every time we had to move. So when we decided to go full time, I said, we can do it, but we need a bigger rig. So we went with a garage model 5th wheel so that my husband has his own office and there's a glass door between us. So I closed the door. He's been teasing about getting me a light that I push that says, you may not enter, because as you can see, I have the kitchen. So in the mornings when he needs coffee or a snack or breakfast, like if I'm already on, he's SOL, he's got to go out one door, around the house, back in and over to use the bathroom. So I'm like, well, you still have access, anyway. But yeah, that was part of the deal was, a nice big space, a full-size fridge, because you're not able to pack the quantity of groceries you really need to spend a couple of weeks boondocking off grid without a big fridge. And that was one of the things we proved last year in our concept. So
nice. Now yeah, and I love camping, and I lived in an RV full time. Now, how long is it? Because ours was 34 foot.
It's 44 feet.
But that's with the garage.
Yes, including the garage.
Yeah. And well, for those RVers who don't know what that means, tell us, explain what that means, though.
Oh, for having the garage or just the length of it? Yeah. So the garage to us, there's a couple different ways that you can take your toys with you when you go camping or when you're out in the wilderness. We have a toy hauler. So what that means is the back of our house, for lack of a better term, goes down into a ramp, and then we drive our side-by-side up into it. In the previous vehicle we had, it came into my living room. You just had to fold up all the couches and stuff, and the car came right in with all of its dirt and dust and debris, which I didn't love. So in this model, we have a separate garage. And then that turns into my husband's office when our Can-Am is out of it. So it's perfect for us to have that extra space. So it literally is just like a garage. And then there's like a hydraulic bunk bed system that comes down and makes another couch and a different bed. So if we have guests, they can use it as the guest suite as well, which is kind of crazy to say that in my RV, I have a guest,
a guest room.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a quote unquote 2-bedroom, right? That had three bunks in the back in the spare room. But basically you have a man cave. That's what you got.
Yeah. And it's a great place. My husband, he's a wanderer. So one of the things when we were in our house was that, he's a wanderer. He's always gone to a different office, but I was always home.
Oh no. So this is the joys, and this is why I really, really appreciated having her on. She'll come back in a second. Here she is, actually. There you are. It's okay. So this is a great segue into what you do, because it is so challenging. And you don't realize it until you're on the road full time to find good connectivity, especially when you're boondocking and especially when you're moving a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
that is accurate.
I'm like super interested in like how that works for you, because I know for me, I got basically a separate device. It's a Wi-Fi hotspot through my mobile cellular service provider. Um, but it only has so much data, right? And then you've got to
Yeah,
pay for more data.
for real.
And typically it runs about $100 a month. Now, I don't normally, even when I was working full time from the RV, I didn't normally use more than that. So how does your system work? So
Yeah, so that's a
curious.
really this is an interesting segue into the technology of it, because there are certain applications that our gear is programmed to utilize and not allow to drop. So here's what we've done. We actually have a combination of LTE signals, so cell phone signals, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. We have SIM cards for all three of those carriers because, as you mentioned, it depends on where you're at and who's going to work the best, right? So we have the option of all three major carriers that we turn on and off, and obviously, because this is my business, I have access to business class plans, and I offer that to my clients as well with a turn on, turn off kind of thing, right? You have to get a kind of different kind of plan to be able to not pay for a whole year's worth of service when you only need a few months, for one. So that's one benefit. The second thing we've done is we actually brought Starlink in as well. It's the newer satellite technology. It's a little higher monthly outlay than the other LTE services and a little bit more upfront, but it works in areas that the other things don't. So what we do is we take all of those connections, and we have it's really, if you're a technical person, you'll recognize that it's an SD-WAN platform, SD-WAN. So we're taking this technology we've
She's speaking my language.
businesses for a long time and bring it back in. So unfortunately, is not one of the protected applications that I can make it use, right? So if we were on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams, when I have a fluctuation, it would keep going and not drop my call. But because this is a different web-based application, I'm not able to put that priority on this particular stream. So live streams are hard, and also it depends on what you do, right? So if you're not on Teams and you're not on Zoom all the time and doing that kind of stuff, you can get away with a Starlink only kind of connectivity, because it doesn't matter what order the packets arrive in when they get to your destination. Whereas on a video call, they have to arrive in the same order, so you don't get jitter or get bumped off. So professionals that are on the road, we are, that depend on Zoom and Teams to run their team and their counterparts across the country, that's where our solution really takes effect. So it's not for everybody, but it is for the working professionals that have to, they're working from home because they still have a corporate job, but home is now wherever they choose to park it, right? So that's really where the advantage comes into us. And all of this technology it's not new technology. It just was never used for this before. So we're taking it and saying, it works really well on oil rigs. It works great in yachts. It works great in other kind of moving outdoor things, and it works great here.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I work with a lot of writers and publishers and book marketing people. And Amy Collins is a book agent. And I think it was last year she went on the road full time. I don't know that she's still on the road. I know she's traveling a lot right now because she's doing a lot of meetings, but it was really interesting to see her, because I would follow her social feed and see her out and doing the camping and seeing all the different places. And she's a writing agent. She's a book agent. So it's not just the entrepreneurs.
Correct.
But also a lot of the corporates, especially since the pandemic, a lot of people didn't go back to the offices. They're working from home, and they're working as they're traveling. I used to work for a coaching firm. The coaches are travel like just an awful amount of time. And a lot of the time they're like working out of airports and things like that. The biggest issue was getting hacked and not having a VPN or, whatever. So
Yep,
Okay,
that's
well,
accurate.
let's get out of the
Yeah,
geekiness.
out of the geek talk. But I mean, that's a really glorious point, which is because I'm a tech nerd and I've traveled, like I've been doing this for like 15 years. I was in an airport,
Mhm.
I was in a hotel, I was wherever, and still was using the same technology. Just it's just being applied differently because the rules about corporate image has shifted a bit, and I am down for that.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So cool.
We adjusted very quickly, surprisingly, to what corporate looked like and what professional was, and really where we are, where you know we're at home, we're on live. If my dogs decide to go bat crazy, that's what they decide to do. Or if I have a kid who's decided that you're home and you've told them be quiet, but there's only so much you can do without redirection or whatever. You just have to learn to go with the flow with that. At this point, you're not in an office where you can control those things. And so yeah, definitely it quickly changed the look and the outcome
Yeah.
of whatever professional is to whoever it is. So
I agree.
Yeah.
And the being authentic and people always asking me, it was hard for me when I was in corporate because they'd say, "Oh, where are you now?" And I'd be like, "I'm on the football field. Like, is there something you need? Like, I am here. Here to answer your questions. I can, whip out my laptop right here. Like, what do we need to do? Like, but just just people getting used to the fact that when they call you, you're not sitting in an office anymore has been like a decade's worth of growth that really skyrocketed in the last 2.5 years, which I'm grateful
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I know one of the things that you talked about was the value of technology in your quality of life. Now,
Oh yeah.
I'm a mom, but my kids are grown.
Yeah.
Um, but as a mom and an entrepreneur, because I know there are a lot of mompreneurs out there, I just don't happen to be one currently. Um, what was there an epiphany? Was there what was the catalyst that said, you know what, I need a better solution than what is available to me, and I'm going to make it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I didn't make them, but I certainly adapted them, right? So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
a telecom nerd. Like, I'm a lifelong tech person. And so, like in the late 90s, we were testing the original voice over IP phones in your home, right? I had small children. They'd be like, "Oh, look at this toy. Smash all the buttons on the side and like broadcast their nonsense across people's offices," right? So I was kind of a test bed. I was always in that environment of like, okay, let's push the limits of this, right? And see how it really works. But it allowed me to have access to my business and to be home with my kids and really kind of test some stuff. So it was not something I was unfamiliar with. And I just, I wound up in a pretty corporate organization, and I said, look, if I am producing for you at the KPIs that you're giving me for, and then I'm going to be wherever I need to be. And that's going to look a lot like me showing up at 9 o'clock in the morning in this physical office keep insisting I come to after I take the kids to
And
school.
paying
Then I'm
for.
going to Exactly, and paying for it, and then I'm gonna leave at 3 because I gotta pick one kid up and take him to football and then start. I mean, I was raising 4 kids by myself at one point, so it was insane. I was spent all the time in my car, so I will be available, I will get my work done, you will not get complaints about my performance, and I was their top salesperson. They weren't gonna be like, "No." So they just kinda went with it, but I had to really, really manipulate them into making it okay. And then as the world started to evolve a little bit, they recognize, "Oh, look at all this new cool technology." And I'm like, "That's so helpful to me in the way that I already live, and we're just going to start adapting that." And then,
Mhm.
from a technology perspective, there aren't a lot of things in the world that affect people on an individual level as much as technology does right now, especially in the last 20 years, right? It has
Yeah.
changed everything about how we spend our days, right? And so being a part of that evolution of technology and saying, look, this can be useful, because there were a lot of, I mean, let's talk auto attendants, right? All the receptionists in the world were going to get fired because there was this new machine that was going to take all the phone calls and route them to the right spot. Well, okay, but what if your right spot is on the football field right now, right? Like there's a lot of
Mhm.
things that made it better. So the context of how I use the technology to improve my life was really really well served the community of folks that I was working with so that they could improve the life for their staff as well. So that's the reason. I mean, it was just one of those, it was an evolution. It wasn't an aha moment.
I was just gonna say, like, it's an evolution, like so many other things. It doesn't, like there is no such thing as overnight success. It's been 10 years in the making, kind of thing. And, I think technology is no different. It moves really quickly. It grows really quickly. It's exponential, but very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So before I want to get to imposter syndrome because that's one of my favorite things to nosh on. But you also mentioned, so if you, I'm going to do a little plug here. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, you will be filling out an application. But the only thing that application asks for is what the hell you want to talk about. And one of the things you love to talk about was going after your dreams, even when folks think you're a bit crazy. And so that's a really intriguing topic to me. I'm guessing that you told some people, I really think I could work full time and travel full time. And they all kind of looked at you with snake eye, like, what?
Oh yeah, all the time. And still, right? People still have a really hard time understanding like what a day looks like for me because we're in our RV and we're out in the middle of nowhere, but we're both still working. My husband has a corporate job and, I'm obviously building my businesses and serving clients. So, they still look at me like that. But imagine telling your adult children like, hey, it's been fun. We're taking off. So like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Right. So, I mean, it was a lot of that's going to be too hard, right? That's too big of a risk, especially coming out of COVID where people were more like, okay, stay in your homes. We're like, we can't do that, right? It's just not in our DNA. We want to explore. We want to travel. We want to be out in the world. And I think you have to choose when you're going after your dreams, you have to choose what's going to be your constant. I mean, think back to like a science experiment, right? Some people really need their home to be their constant, right? That's their safe place. That's what they come back to. That's their delineation between work and personal time. Some people really need their job to be their constant, right? And they need that to be an ongoing thing, and other things can change. We are the crazy kind of people that just like all the things to change all the time and just adapt and enjoy solving those problems. It's not for everybody, like I said, but that's the thing that people look at us like we're just crazy. I mean, when I started Blush Technology Group in the middle of the pandemic, they were like, what? Why would you do that? I'm like, listen, my skill set intersects at technology and healthcare and business. Like those are the superpowers that I have. And people need those a lot right now because they don't know what to do. Everything around the world's changing. And people have either calling me saying, Jess, we should have listened to you 5 years ago, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe we didn't listen to you 5 years ago. Like, what do we do to change this? Right. So I think anything good, I think anything good is going to get somebody to say, man, I don't know if that's the greatest idea, financially or security, whatever the case may be.
It's all fear, right? People fear the unknown. And this, and they fear they crave what's safe. And, so hearing someone say that they're going to travel full-time or work full-time, that doesn't sound normal. That doesn't sound safe. And right. It doesn't. And I think some people too come from that mindset of, oh, well, I would love to do that too. But, I've got a day job. I've got a real job. I have a real job too. My butt's in the chair every morning at 9 a.m. If not earlier. Like I was telling, but Laura, was it you? I was like, I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning and could not fall back to sleep. So guess what? Right. My happy ass has been up since 4 o'clock. And I was telling you because we got on our call to prep for this around 3. And I'm like, I am so tired. I was yawning over and over and over again. But hey, so the nice thing about working for yourself is I can actually quit when I'm done today and take a nap if I want, because I'm already home, like right there. I could just.
That's right.
Well, the idea of it is that if you're in the office and you're getting tired, everyone around you is now seeing you're unproductive. There's no point in you being there. They get agitated. It becomes this thing where, if you're at home, you've scheduled this. Now, I am a component for nap time. Like, I really think adult nap time should be a requirement like it was when we were two, you know? So I love that. And the idea of 15 minutes to go take a power nap or sit down away from the system and everything else is something that I try to do regularly. And that makes a lot more sense. Being home allows for that. And then even your child, like, now you can be like, I'm gonna go take a bike ride or whatever, and be out, and even that much. So that makes it even better, because it's just no one needs to know what you're doing when you're not on the clock.
Yeah. And nature fills my soul. So I found what rejuvenates me and what makes me happy. So just like in that, if I'm getting tired or I need a change of scenery or whatever, I'm going to go outside. And that's really hard to do in a traditional environment unless you live somewhere where it never gets super hot or super cold, right? So now we just kind of follow the good weather so that I always have the ability to go outside and kind of, get back to nature. So, but when I did work in corporate, I took a lot of lunch naps. I'm not going to lie, just because you do it.
I love it. I love it. I never took lunch naps. I might have done a nooner every now and then, but so totally different topic. But
right?
Laura's like, I can't believe she just said that.
No, I can't believe you just said that. And then I thought about it, like, oh yeah.
So there was a time for me, and actually I'm still kind of going through it, where I'm really, really grateful for working from home, because I, like, medically was prescribed, you need to lay down every 2 hours for 10 minutes. And, I wouldn't have been able to go to a corporate job and do that.
No.
And, and it's so, yeah, it's been something that is just, I'm just super grateful for. The other thing we were going to talk about was imposter syndrome. And specifically,
yes.
We've heard this, imposter syndrome majority of the time is affecting women. We're not saying men aren't affected, but the majority of the time women are the ones struggling with this, and specifically women entrepreneurs. Anybody who's out there putting themselves out there on any kind of consistent basis, they're gonna deal with this. When did you first, like, experience it or hear about it? I know for me as an entrepreneur, I didn't know what imposter syndrome was until I started my business in 2019. And then I was like, what the heck is this? Because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have started one business after another, a bookstore, just about any direct selling thing. I've probably done it in my lifetime. Actually might have done it twice or more than once. But so what was the challenge for you that brought it up for you?
Well, I think for me, it's, like I said, I'm a technology nerd. So I didn't go to college and come out with some tech degree or anything like that. I learned from doing. I was fortunate to be brought up in an industry with people who are willing to teach me the why. Okay, like the why the tech worked and how. So I got a lot of really fantastic education, but it wasn't in the form of a certificate from a university. I mean, like I said, I've got adult kids. I'm not super old myself by any shape, stretch of the imagination. So I started young. I had kids young. I learned from doing and worked in all aspects of technology until I got to a certain point. So for me, I never experienced the imposter syndrome until I became an entrepreneur. When I was in the corporate environment, I had really great mentors, and a lot of them were men, and I never had that feeling like I didn't belong there. A lot of women in technology have this like, I shouldn't speak at this table kind of stuff. And I never felt that way, which made it really hard for me to fit into like women in technology groups and stuff. Like, I adored the women, but I just didn't have the same experiences as they had in that struggle. But when I became an entrepreneur and I didn't have a big logo behind my name, right? Representing, whatever the tech giant was that, we were in the house. I was like, oh, hey, and I had that fear of like, am I wrong? Like, I knew I wasn't wrong, but I had this like emotional reaction to the things I was doing, the things I was saying. Like, am I going to say something wrong? And I had to take a step back and say, well, I've not done that before, or if I did, I've always been, really humble about saying, I misspoke about this. And I mean, in tech stuff, it changes very quickly. And so there's always things that have changed since you've checked the last time on this solution or whatever.
Yes.
But I just got hit with that. And it was like probably like 3 months into launching Blush, I was like, I'm not sure I belong here. And it took me a hot minute to kind of regroup from a confidence perspective. And I even, gained some additional certifications and did some things that made me feel better. Although they weren't all that important to my business, it helped me get past that. Like, yeah, I belong here. This is my voice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
I never knew what people were talking
really
about.
See that. Like they have to see that certification, or it's that need. And I think it's a need for people to see it from women. Like, you have to prove something. And it drives me crazy. Unless you're part of a big corporation, like you said, that has that big name behind you. And so they assume you're the expert at it because you're part of it. Now, all of a sudden, you have so much to prove. I'll be damned. I got, I had the same problem and got past that. And that's how I feel about it. Like, if I have to prove something to you, what are you proving to me?
Yeah.
Because you're in the same world. You're in the same entrepreneur world as me. So if you feel a need for everybody to prove something to you, what is it you're proving to us? Because you've got this same thing going. So that mind change and that mind shift of, not having that makes so much sense. Like,
Jess, you mentioned being in healthcare. So I was in healthcare for a couple decades, and I mean, if you didn't have a bunch of letters behind your name, like who are you again?
Oh,
she's back. I don't know why it pops you off.
If you
come right back.
That's right. I mean, that's the persistence of our connection, right? So what's happening is one of my connections said, "Oh no," and it just looped me to the other one. That's what happens. So at least it's like a quick blip when it happens. But you're right. If you didn't have a million credentials behind your name, nobody wanted to listen to anything you had to say from a healthcare perspective. That is super true.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't negate who you were, or what you did. And it may have been the one company you worked for. So you learned by doing. I did the same thing. So I knew that company. I knew everything about them front and back, right? And when you come out and you're running your own, and it's a bunch of different companies, and they may not even go hand in hand and that kind of thing, it was the reminder of the basics are still there. And anything you need to uptrain is very simply done. But is it necessary? Like, again, you're not proving. You have the basics down. You've been doing this forever. And it doesn't change so drastically between company and company and company, whether it's humongous corporate company or this itty bitty 1 or 2 person run company.
Right. So. Especially from a technology perspective, the foundation's the same, the technology is the same. It's just a matter of like, I don't know. It was just a crazy thing. And it really did hit me in the face. Like, I've been saying it's the same. It's all the same. But now all of a sudden, I feel like I've got some imposter syndrome. And it comes back to me too in waves. So here's an example. We were leaving a campground in a different part of Texas than we're in right now. And my husband was getting our satellite dish off the roof of the trailer. So I'm on the ladder. My husband's handing it down to me. I'm grabbing the equipment, right? And I'm much closer to the man that approaches us to ask about our technology, but he ain't listening to me. He only wants an answer from my husband. So until that no longer continues in our society, I every once in a while, you're just going to get hit with that. Like, wait, like, do I really? No, I do. That dude's just whatever. But that's just how it is. Right. And I get that a lot because I chose to be in an industry that is not, it's not super inclusive. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
getting, it's in increments. It's like an evolution, right? It is getting a little better every, decade. we can't talk years now because, it's the change isn't quite that noticeable. But so when we first got on the call, like I said, I had been stalking your Facebook, so I knew you were in Texas. So how long have you been on the road this time?
We went full time in our RV at the last week of April of this year. So since then, so was that like 8 months or so far?
Crazy. Yeah. I left on April 20th to drive to Texas for a business conference. And my plan was to do the business conference and come back. And I had actually already given notice and packed everything up. And put, and I was going to put everything in storage and go on the road full time. And the business trip to Texas, of all places, in late April was like my test run, because I had retrofitted my car. I had what did I have? A Chevy Equinox. Like, I blanked on that. I had a Chevy Equinox, and I had retrofitted it with a bed in the back with memory foam mattress and, everything. The way it basically I was car camping out of my car. And my plan was to go full time for 6 months and travel around meeting with clients that I'd never met because we've been working remote since the pandemic. And some of these clients I had never met face to face. And then meet new clients and schmooze and try to get, more work and stuff. And I was going to do that for 6 months. So kind of a segue. That's what we're going to talk about next week. I'm going to share my experience. I ended up only being on the road for a month because of a car accident.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I had planned actually to pretty much I've seen the majority of the central United States. I'm from Florida, and that's where I live now. And I'm like you, when I get like I need to be outside, I am so fortunate. I can go out and sit by the pool and, totally covered and screened in and work totally from outside and still have really strong Wi-Fi the whole day and be completely comfortable. It's just awesome. But I lost my train of thought. So next week we're going to talk, I'm going to share a little bit about my month and how, well, it just didn't go as planned. Like even the dry run, it was like, okay, that wasn't quite what I was expecting. And I'm going to have to do a little something different. Like you get into it and you're like, well, that's not going to work. We're going to have to figure something else out. Or, this is a lot more inconvenient than I thought it was. And did you have any moments like that when you first went full time?
Oh yeah. I mean, like all the time. And it's because we've had the experience to test and figure things out. Like we have plan B's, plan C's, like we know what we are going to do. Well, you have to, and you, to avoid being like super stressed out, I think, and giving up in those moments, you have to know what your tolerance for going to plan B is. Like at what point do we say, that's it, we're getting in the truck, we're going to drive till we have service, we'll figure it out there. Or plan C, which is we're loading everything up, we're moving, we got to go to a place with better signals. I mean, we do a lot of research ahead of time, but I mean, there were days where even a couple weeks ago, so before we added the Starlink to our scenario, our LTE works great for calls and stuff like this, but it took me like almost an hour to upload like a 27-second video to Facebook because I didn't have the throughput. Like I had the bandwidth, but not the throughput. They're different things, right? To make that happen in the way I needed it. So I was like, that ain't going to work, right? So we constantly have those planning conversations. And we also plan what things we're going to do from a work perspective, in addition to from an off-roading and exploring perspective when we're traveling. So if I know that I've got a whole bunch of like social media content, those are big creative files that takes quite a bit to upload, videos, that kind of stuff. Like I'm going to do that in a place where I know there's either super high LTE signal or a mooching off of a friend, right? I mean, that's where we figure that out. So I definitely plan my working weeks based on where we're going to be at so that I can get all the content uploaded that I need to. If it's a pay for data kind of scenario. Now we run like my husband and I average like 150 gigs a month. So that's a pretty hefty LTE plan, right?
Yeah.
But he's on the phone all day long. I'm doing stuff all day long. We're watching TV. We're still, having some Netflix. We couldn't miss House of Dragons and whatnot. So there's things we got to do from the
True
road.
story.
But we live here, right? So
Yes.
but we've had to really learn to plan so that our adaptation is easy, right? So that our transfer to the next plan is easy. We spent like 4 days working from a city park in Kanab, Utah. Like, you just got to be flexible. And if you don't like to be flexible, I would not encourage you to take up this lifestyle.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You do have to be able to go with the flow, be flexible.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't let every little thing derail you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, next. Okay, next.
Yeah. And also,
you really have to have that.
And beyond like a working perspective, like, how am I going to grow my business? How am I going to get my work done? It's like, every time we move, something breaks in our house. So you have to be able to fix those things. That's just the way it is. You drag any house thousands of miles down the road, things are going to break when you get there. So there's that on top of it. So my husband and I'm grateful. He's very mechanically inclined engineer. And so he's able to fix those things, and I film them, which he gets real irritated about. You might start picking up on that in the videos if you watch me on social media.
We have to have you back on. We have to have you back on the podcast. Just when we're done, as soon as we're done here, just go book another one.
Okay.
We have to have another episode with you, because there's so much more good stuff here.
There's so much good stuff. And that's what I love about this life. It's comical, right? I look at it from a very, like, I learned something today, and I don't get frustrated by it, but I think you got to have a certain mindset as a fempreneur, for sure, as a mompreneur, as an entrepreneur in general, and as a business owner. Like, it's different. Having a corporate job is a lot easier.
Yeah. And people will think about that, because like, I'm a corporate dropout, and I was really excited, and I left corporate in April, and then by September 1st of that same year, my husband also had quit. We'd bought a house, sold a house, and moved states. Like, oh my God, what just happened? For somebody who does it, I'm not one that likes change very much. I stress and anxiety about that. But it was funny leaving corporate because I was so relieved. But starting the business, I've thought about it like, so this probably would have been easier to stay in corporate. As horribly miserable as I was, easier, yes, it would have been,
Right?
but
sometimes easier isn't better, right?
No, it wasn't for me. It was super unfulfilling. I was really great at my job, but I was bored.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And look at you now. So you're experiencing,
not bored.
You're traveling and you're working, and you're not bored.
Yeah,
right?
Correct. Absolutely.
I like, you're probably hoping like maybe tomorrow will be boring, but well, Jess, and obviously this has been a blast. Jess has a couple of things to share with our listeners and viewers. You can join GoRome.tech community for the traveler's guide to working from Rome. I love that. And we'll put that link in the show notes, but it's www.gorome.tech. Or you can get a no cost, no BS consultation from Blush Technology Group about your business, communication automation, or cybersecurity needs. And there will be a link to schedule that with Jess. And again, next week.
Oh, sorry. And so just a quick side note with her cybersecurity, your entrepreneurs and fempreneurs, with cybersecurity becoming such a big thing, it's definitely something to look into, because that also helps with your business insurance and other things like that. So having a conversation with Jess and making sure that you have what you need so that your insurance also is looking at that as well. So side note, just everyone.
That's a whole other conversation. And 100%
right.
True.
Again, okay,
Absolutely.
So just book 2 episodes, okay?
Right. That's fine. Yeah.
So next week we'll be back, and we're going to dive a little deeper into being a digital nomad, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say about that. No more clues. Okay. But it's been wonderful. Jess, thank you so much for joining us and being here and just being delightful. And for all you people watching and listening, please remember to subscribe and turn on those notifications wherever you listen or watch the podcast. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Have a great